We want to take a moment to acknowledge there are a variety of people who could describe themselves as neurodivergent, and this can include a diverse list of conditions, disorders, etc.
And while our experiences may specifically relate to autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, we hope that all our listeners can feel welcome and relate to the shared experience of being neurodivergent in a neurotypical world, because this is our safe space.
It's your favorite squirrels, Shai and Lex. It's time for another episode of Black Girl, Brown Girl, Squirrel. Hey, Squirrel.
Hey, Squirrel.
What? Why it took you so long to say hi?
You know what my default is. I always be like, hey, friend. So
Well,
I'm
then,
probably
hey,
just gonna be like,
friend.
hey, friend.
Lord have mercy. Anyway, it's nice to have you back. I'm glad you decided to stick around for episode 2, so I didn't scare you off with the first episode, did I?
Nope, you didn't scare me. I'm still here.
All right, she's still here. She's still standing. And it's great to have you listeners back with us as well. Or if you're coming to us for the first time, my name is Shai.
I'm Lex.
And we are the hosts of Black Girl, Brown Girl, Squirrel, your source for everything related to neurodivergence when it comes to Black and Brown women. So in this episode, we're going to start with our origin stories. I feel like I'm an X-Men or a Marvel character at this point. So we're going to start with our stories. And so since I'm the oldest, I'll start with mine. No, because actually I'm the most recently diagnosed. So it's the newest and the most raw to me. But I'm trying to think of where I want to begin. It actually
I have a question for you.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Go ahead.
Listen, you might have been about to say it, but when did you first think that you might have ADHD? How did this even start to be a thing in the first place?
You know, it's wild because end of 21, I had to have a full hysterectomy. So that, changes your hormones and all of that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay. I didn't do hormone replacement therapy. I was just like, I don't want to do anything else. There's too many risks involved because of health situations. But I noticed within a couple of months that I was feeling a little bit more off than I thought I was going to feel. I don't really know how to explain it except to say I felt like I couldn't think clearly. I was having really weird issues with sleep. Some days I was an insomniac. Some days I was up all night, sleep all morning. Other times I would sleep all day, be up late at night. I mean, it was all these like little weird things that were kind of happening. And so I just was like, something doesn't feel right. And as I started looking into things and I was like, well, this could be all hormonal, this and that. But then there were other things that were happening to me. I could not think straight. I had 11 tabs open in my brain. And the music is playing in 3 of them. And now I've got to try to go through every tab to figure them out. And as I'm going through each tab, I'm noticing that I'm opening more tabs. And I'm like, something is not right. And it was hard for me to refocus and concentrate. It was hard for me to get things done. And the last time I kind of felt like that, I was dealing with a thyroid issue. So it was like, okay, I need to do some investigation. It wasn't thyroid and some other things. And I was like, something's not right. So I happened to be talking to one of my girlfriends. Her name is Hannah. You know Hannah. So I was talking to Hannah one day and I was like, she was explaining to me like her and her sister. And Hannah was the cook. Her sister was the neat freak. So her sister would come over and straighten up and clean her house. Hannah would go over there and cook. And she was like, yeah, because, we have ADHD and this and that. And I was like, well, let's talk about that. So the more she talked about it, and I was like, And I said, do you think it's possible I could have ADHD versus this is something from menopause? So she sent me a couple of links and I, of course, forgot about them. They were pinned into my messages and I forgot about them. And I would pass through as I'm going through my text and go, oh, yeah, there's Hannah's name. I need to look at those. Oh, yeah, there's Hannah's name. I need to look at those. And then, in all honesty, and I think this is how many of us end up coming to our official diagnosis. I launched my business in 22. In 23, I was starting to have, I don't even know what to call it, a mental breakdown, crash out, whatever. I just knew I called it spiraling. I was going down some kind of a drain, and I didn't like where I was headed. I was overwhelmed. I couldn't think straight. There were too many things to think about. I was not making good decisions financially in my personal life. I wasn't making good decisions financially in my business life. And I was like, something has got to give. And so on my intake form to my therapist, I just listed out everything and anything that was bothering me. Everything and anything that was bothering me. And I was like, and I don't know if I have ADHD or something else, but there seems to be signs that I might. Or this could just be menopause stuff. But whatever it is, I got to get it fixed because this is going to cost me everything that I have worked so hard for.
I'm sure it can be
And
frustrating to try to figure that out because, like, there is a lot of evidence of like women going through menopause, having like the foggy brain, all this different kind of stuff going on.
mhm.
Just being so like, I can't remember nothing. I
Yes,
can't do
exactly.
anything. I
And then
can't sleep. All this is happening. And they just going through it.
they are. And then you throw in autoimmune illnesses, which has a lot of the same
Mm,
symptoms. So you have brain fog. You also have the forgetfulness. You're in the middle of a sentence and you can't remember what you were talking about or what
mm,
words you want to use. I mean, it was all these different things. And there were so many things overlapping. And then, we'll get into this in future episodes, but you also have the medical establishment, which wants to tell you that all of this is in your head,
mm-hmm,
particularly as women. They want to tell you all this
mm-hmm,
is in your head, or they want to they call you a hypochondriac, or they tell you you just need some rest, go get some vitamin B12, go get some vitamin D, all these different things. And it turns out, no, you really do have something going on inside of you that can be, for lack of a better term, it can be monitored and it can be worked with. I don't feel like we need to be fixed. So I don't like using that terminology, but it's something you can work with, right? It may not be curable, so to speak, but it's something you can work with. So, I do a lot of research because of the health challenges I've had. I do a lot of research before I even go to the doctor so that they're not talking at me sideways and I can go in feeling like I'm a little bit educated about what's going on with my body. Nobody knows my body better than me. And it just so happened to turn out that about a year into therapy, my therapist finally goes, so let's talk about your ADHD. And I was like, oh, so you just gonna throw it out there like that? You're not gonna even try to, warm it up for me and make it all like, hey, so I've been thinking about. No, she just literally threw out there, so let's talk about your ADHD. And I was like, so that's how I found out I had ADHD. And if you know my therapist, which Lex does, because it was her therapist too, but
yep.
if you
Same
know her,
therapist.
yes, same therapist, different issues. But if, I told Lex, the doctor said it's not contagious. And what did you say?
Oh, I still feel like I might catch it though. I
There we
don't.
go.
I don't know.
There we go. But I just felt like, I was like, okay, she just threw that out there. And so we got to talking, and I was like, what makes you think? And she was like, oh, honey, you are so textbook. And when she ran it down, I was like, oh, I guess I am textbook. So
That's
I
so
went and did
funny.
my
She
research, and the
she
first thing
read the
she said,
textbook. She
she
read
didn't
the
read the
textbook
textbook.
to you.
She was like, you are textbook.
And then she
And
proceeded to run off the things from said textbook. Oh man, she's
he just,
awesome.
it
She's
was like
she's
she
great.
just flipped the page. It was like, there's your picture and there's the definition. Shai equals ADHD. Yeah, she told me I was textbook, and I was just like, wow, okay. And the more we talked, the more it made sense. But she did do it in a way that made me feel like I could be comfortable with this, and that it was new and you need some time to absorb it and think about it before we move any further and talk about anything else. The only thing that she did encourage me to do was to think about medication, and she explained all my medication options and so forth. But that's how I ended up coming to my diagnosis, because I literally felt like I was going crazy. And I don't
Mm,
mean, a lot of people use that in the mental health field or talking about mental health in a derogatory way. And it was not in a derogatory way. I felt like I was out of control.
mm,
And that was making me feel crazy. Like, okay, did I really just do that? Did I not? Where was I going with that? Why can't I remember? Why am I not finishing this project? What is going on? Where did I pick up? And I flash back to when I first got sick with my thyroid. I was super
mm-hmm,
sick and almost died before knowing what was going on with me. And I remember asking one of my director at the time, I was like, how often do I ask you to repeat stuff to me? And she's like, almost every single time we meet. She would give me the same directions over and over. I would say, okay, so you want me to do this, and this. And when you're in a talent development field where you have to do research and you're writing training and you have to deliver training, there's things you're just supposed to try to remember, and I would write
mm,
stuff down. I went and looked back at my notepads even now. I also thought I was bipolar. I felt like I called it manic, where one minute I was like intense and everything was good and everything was getting done and it was da 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 da. And then I would crash.
mm,
And I wasn't bipolar, I was just hyper focusing. And
mm-hmm,
so doing so much hyper focusing ended up draining me. And then I'd have to crash for a couple of days of sleep. Don't talk to me, don't this, don't that. And it was a nightmare and it was wreaking havoc on my family because they didn't know,
mm,
are you cool to talk to? You're not cool to talk to? Are you going to get up today? You're not getting up today? Well, it was a lot of that going on. Yeah, I didn't feel like I was in a mentally safe space. And so I was relieved, one, to get therapy because I really did need to have therapy to get
mm.
me into a safer space, and then also to get the diagnosis.
It's interesting because you have to almost work through some of the surface stuff before you can get to the deeper things. It's
Mm-hmm.
funny when you were like a year into therapy because I was like, I'm pretty sure that's how long it took before we got into some some big things as well.
Right?
A year in, I actually thought I was done. I was like, I think I'm doing real good. I might be about to get out of therapy. That's crazy. And she was like, so I think it's time that we need to talk about trauma. And I said, oh no. She remembered. Yeah, you got to like get to that mentally safe space to even really start digging into some of the
Yes.
things that might be bigger or
Yeah,
like changing the way that you view your entire self, right?
exactly.
So I'm curious though, this experience you were having that led you to be like, it might be ADHD, I don't know. Had you felt these sort of things also like throughout your life? Had you had other periods of time where maybe it was showing up more intensely like this than others? Do you recall being a teenager having the same kind of experience in school or something like that?
So here's the funny thing is that as I looked back on my life and tried to go, oh, that makes sense. I can't say I had it all the time. I remember I'm still working through, and I got to be fair and say this, I'm still working through some of my own trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So there's things that I do and don't remember very well. But I do remember in the ninth grade. Now, I was someone who was always very good at school, like straight A's. The lowest grade I ever got was a B one time. And I think I got a satisfactory in elementary school. And my mom went and fought that, like, I know you lying, kind of thing. Um, but I had always had pretty much straight A's and then, an occasional B. And it was always in math.
Mm-hmm.
So I can go back further than ninth grade. In elementary school, my mother used to give me workbooks in the summertime because I would forget how to math. Wouldn't forget how to read because that was from the time that I could sit up. She was reading to me. That was like our thing when we came home, when, we got home from school and work, preschool and stuff. We would sit down, she'd give me a book and she'd have a book and we'd read. And so even my family says they recall me reading books or remembering how to turn the pages on stories and kind of like reading the stories as young as 2 years old. So it was always a passion of mine. But she said I always struggled with math. And I do remember that. I remember I would get all the rest of my homework done when I would come home after school, and I would be hours at the table trying to
Mm.
do math. And there were certain pieces of math I could do easier. Addition wasn't so hard, certain multiplication wasn't so hard. But then as I got older, I couldn't recognize like patterns, I guess, if you will. Like
Mm.
sometimes they have those math puzzles. This is probably why I can't do what is it, Sudoku, because
Mm.
there's a pattern that you got to figure out. And as soon as I thought I would figure it out, I was throwing something else off. I made it to the math Olympics at my elementary school. I have no clue how, but I lost. I'm for real, for real. It was like me. It
Mhm.
came down to me and this one other dude from another school, and I'm like, how did I end up here? But here I is, and I was doing it, and I could now I vividly remember where the thing that I know that cost me the math Olympics in my school was it came down to one of these pattern things where it was like going across and across or diagonal or whatever should total 18 or 19, something weird. And I went in
Mhm.
and did it, and I thought, oh, I got it. And then I go running in and da 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 da, and I ended up losing the whole thing. And I was like mortified. Um, and then I remember that I did pre-algebra in junior high and high school. So I should have been in algebra in ninth grade, which I did go into algebra. I could not keep up.
Mm.
Now, in all fairness, there were some traumatic things that happened between ninth and eighth grade that just was a challenging time in my life with the relationship with my dad, relationship with my mom. There was just a lot going on there. To respect their privacy, I won't go into all of that, but
Mhm.
it was some challenging things separately because my parents weren't married, so they weren't even together at the time, but it was just different things that hit separately, one from one life and one from the other life. And so going into ninth grade year, I was just not in a good place. And so here I am in algebra class with Ms. Dansky, and she's moving fast. And by the time I would get a concept, she was like 2, 3 chapters ahead. That's where I remember the feeling of, why can't I get this? Why can't I
Mm.
do this like other people? And I had tutors. She tutored me. I had different tutors that, people at the school, going to their houses, being tutored at school, all these different things. And I couldn't do it. And I was begging my mom to get me out of that class. I was like, Mom, I can't keep up. I can't do this. And by the time the last quarter came for school,
Mhm.
my mom was like, oh, you really don't get this.
The last quarter. Oh, our moms are fantastic. I love them to death. That's how I feel about that.
The one thing that I will say in her defense, because my mother was not a bad mother at
Mhm.
all. In her defense, she was going through a lot of things. She didn't know it herself. So she didn't know what she could or could not teach me, right? Or
Mhm.
how to help me in that regard. And she thought that I was just being typical teenager, not wanting to do X, Y, and Z, not understanding that I really did want to learn and understand this, and I couldn't. So
Mhm.
that's when she finally talked to my guidance counselors, and then I got put into pre-algebra, and then I got pre-algebra 1, and I go into that class, and I'm like, I know this stuff. Boom, got straight A's. So I went from getting F's to getting A's,
Mm.
but it was wild. So that was one instance. And then I remembered thinking back, one of the things that hit me hard with my diagnosis was realizing that I had a lot of impulsive spending.
Mm.
And I said, I felt for years. Now, mind you, I'm 51. So pretty much my entire adult life, I felt shame and embarrassment and all kinds of things around the fact that I could not keep a budget. Just couldn't keep a budget. I could put one together. I'd start sticking to it. And then be like a couple of months later, I even had a friend come over a couple of years ago, and I let her into my personal business. At that time, I was like, here go my overdrawn checking account. Here go my this. Here goes my that. And here's the stuff that I've done. And she was like, and here's your plan on what we're going to do. And she walked me through it, and she helped. She had me kind of like build it out. She gave me the spreadsheet, all this kind of stuff. Everything was going great. And it went out the window. And I couldn't understand, why is it at my big age I cannot budget? I hear all my friends of all ages talking about their budget, and they got so much for, going to these concerts and going and doing this and going and doing that. And I'm like, if I got the money in the account, I'm going. Husband really he isn't like that, but he's a finance manager, but yeah, he let me handle the money. Go figure. And that's a whole nother story in and of itself. So anyway, to answer that, it's a whole nother story. I
I
know
got
this is
nothing to say about that. I'm
I
not
know
touching
this is
that
a
at all.
whole long way around. Well, I think he's ADHD too, so we're literally going to get him checked. But I say all that to say, to answer your question, there are spots that I can remember where I felt like that was ADHD showing up. I was
Okay.
the kid in school that was always done with work first.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm bored. I need something to do.
Mm-hmm.
And my stuff wasn't wrong. So it was like, my mother was the one that was like, you guys need to challenge her more. My teachers was like, she's great, but she talks excessively in class. And she's like, well, let her help her teach you. I was considered gifted. They actually wanted to skip me some grades. And my mom was like, no, you're going to stay right where you are, because you only have so long to be a kid. And I don't want you to jump ahead of that experience in life. You ought to know what it's like to be 16 with other 16-year-olds, or whatever the case may be. So those are the things I look back on and go, yeah, that's where the ADHD showed up.
And it's funny because this kid is gifted. Oh, this kid just needs to be challenged more. That is like the starter pack to
Yes.
neurodivergent women in school. Like we were
Yes.
all held that particular experience I connect to on a very deep level. And it's
Yes.
interesting too, considering that we have two different diagnoses and in so many ways that we go opposite directions.
Mm-hmm.
These are the ways that we overlap because that
Yep.
was truly my experience. My teacher was literally giving me harder work in school because I was like, I'm done, I'm bored and I need you to figure it out. So,
Yeah. So I went to a private school from like second through fifth grade, and I'm in third grade and I'm reading 12th grade books. And then it got to a point where I read all the books and they were like, we don't have anything else for you to read,
hmm
you know, or, writing poetry or memorizing great speeches and all these different types of things. If it was anything that had to do with language arts, the theater, so on and so forth, I was right there. Math, whatever. But and the other part of that starter pack too is being told that you're daydreaming. Well, that's another way, and we'll talk about this in future episodes, how to start recognizing the possibility that you might have neurodivergence, because that was another thing. Many girls are misdiagnosed or not diagnosed at all, because it's like, oh, well, she's sitting there daydreaming. Well, we're not hyper as far as boys are, where they're jumping up and down and tapping and humming and doing all kinds of, acrobatics in class, or acting, as our
hmm
parents would say, acting a fool. No, we're sitting there tuned out, so to speak. We're tuned out in a whole different world. And I also find it interesting too, my therapist, because I know you're not seeing her anymore because you're free. Um, but Dr. A has said, she was like, technically speaking, because I had asked her at one point, I was like, could I be autistic? And she goes, I'm just going to be honest with you. She said, technically speaking, everybody that's neurodivergent is on the spectrum. It's just a matter of where they are on the spectrum, which determines to what degree they're autistic, or to what degree that they're, ADHD, or, those types of things. And I was like, oh, good to know. So there's things that I look back on and I say, yeah, there's some things there that I can pinpoint to that made me feel like that was the ADHD showing up.
So then, okay, you're at a point where you're like, all right, my therapist telling me to my face, I for sure have ADHD. What was your initial thought with that? Was it positive? Was it negative? How did you react to that news?
I was numb. I
Please
sat
say
there.
more.
I just sat there and I was like, okay. And then we kept talking, and then she wanted to talk about medication because she wanted me to go see my doctor right away to see about getting on some medication to start trying to get regulated. And she was like, and I had already looked up all the information on the medication just in case I was ADHD. I looked it up like months ago. And so she ran through everything, and I was like, okay, well, I'll look into it. And she goes, I'm not forcing you to do anything. I just feel like this is a recommendation, but it's a strong recommendation. I think this is going to help you as we work through your executive function, which I'm still trying to learn and understand,
Mm-hmm.
and the emotions and all of this and all of that. So when I walked out the door, I started going to the car and walking down the stairs to the car, and I go, okay, so I have ADHD. It wasn't until I got in the car that it hit me and I got emotional
Mm.
because I thought, dang, I done picked up another medical
Mm.
condition, another label. I've already got this, 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 this. I proudly call myself a spoonie. That's what those of us with invisible illnesses and certain
Mm.
ones call ourselves. But I'm like, now I got another label. Okay, it wasn't exactly unexpected, but dang, I got another label. And so then I sat there and I just started crying
Mm.
because everything I had read, some of the things I just shared with you, stuff was coming back to me. Like I said, like it was a
Mm-hmm.
download from the Matrix. And I was like, I get it. Oh. Some of it hurt. Some of it was like, oh, that's a relief. And then some of it was just pure shame and embarrassment.
What were
Because
you embarrassed about?
so it was things like I had spent time getting ourselves out of debt, out of some serious debt. And within a matter of a year and a half, we were back in debt again. Not quite to the extreme of what we had, but we were back in debt again.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, money has always been hard for me to talk about. Easy for me to spend, hard for me to talk about. And there's some triggers there because I used to be a saver when I was a kid. But we lived in a place where our house got broken into 3 times. And we kind of figured out that it was some family members, unfortunately, that had done it. And the last time they broke into the house, they stole all of my silver dollars that I used to collect. They stole my Barbie doll money because Barbies used to be mad expensive back in the day. So I had saved
Mm-hmm.
up a lot of money to buy me a new Barbie doll. I used to collect coins, different types of coins, different years and stuff. I had buffalo head nickels. There was Indian head nickels, and then there was buffalo pennies, I think it was. So I had all these unique things, but whatever it was, everything I had was gone. And from that point forward, I could not save money.
Mm.
I
Okay.
had a very challenging time saving money. So this brings back all of those things and all of, that's triggers and all that kind of stuff. And I was embarrassed all over again. And because I'm like, I'm at this big age and I've done the same things over and over again. And I can remember my mom telling me when I was younger about something else. She was like, you know what? You can keep running around. I used to run track. She was like, you can keep running around that same track over and over. She was like, but when are you going to get off that track and go try a different course?
Mm.
And I realized I was running the same track over and over and over again throughout my entire adult life. And that's a
Mm.
hard pill to swallow when you look up
Mm.
and you're like, okay. So I turned on some music. I turned on a group I love called The Rose, and I turned on Lifeline. It's a really great song.
Mm.
And I allowed myself to cry and listen to that song on the way home. I said, you're going to feel what you're going to feel. So feel it. And I felt it for about 2 days. As I like to tell my clients sometimes, I was like, so I put my big girl panties on and I cried for 2 days. And then I was like, okay, now you need to get to work. Put your thong on and get to moving.
Okay. What a phrase. What a phrase. I had no idea the phrase was coming. Um. Okay.
No, it's just saying that you feel a certain
Mm-hmm.
way one time, but there's something that makes you feel good and makes you feel a little spicy or whatever, make you feel like I got to get up and get going, and that was it. I was like, okay, you've wallowed enough. Get up and get going and figure out what you're going to do with your life. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
you've got this information. Now what are you going to do? You felt some type of way. And don't get me wrong, I'm still working through all those emotions. It's just that I
Mm.
said, I'm at a point now where you're going to have to do something about it. You wanted to know, now you know. Now what are you going to do? And literally about a week and a half later, this show came to me.
Mm. Wow. What's it like to have ideas that fast? I don't think that fast at all. I feel like you think in thought bubbles. I don't know nothing about that life.
In all honesty, it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
My husband will tell you it's scary. He goes, the amount of ideas that I have come up with.
Mm.
He said to me one time, he said it out of desperation, but it was so true and it was absolutely hilarious. He goes, oh my God, can you please just come up with one idea and just see it all the way through? It's like, wow.
Oop.
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay. But no, but for real, that's why I said our neurodivergence works differently for each of us.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us are creatives, and that is great. And so we work in a variety of fields where we can be creative. I'm in talent development. I love being in front of a classroom. I love talking to people about whatever it is I'm training them on and writing the curriculum and so forth. You're in the accounting field, in the
Mm-hmm.
field of finance. So for you, sitting down, working out numbers, organization, that's great for you. Organization only works when my mind gets chaotic. When my mind gets chaotic, something has to get organized
Mm-hmm.
because my outward world is reflective of my inward world, right?
Mm.
So it all works differently for each of us. So for me, I can sit down. I used to have people come to me and say, and I almost went into business doing this. And I was like, this isn't really sustainable. But I used to
Mm.
have people come to me and say, I have a passion for this, and I like to figure out a way to combine them all together to create a business and generate a revenue stream. And I would say, give me 24 hours. I wouldn't need 24 hours, but I would take 24 hours. And next thing you know, I would come to them with a full-blown outline of here's option A, here's option B, here's option C, how they can do it, how they can do those revenue streams. I used to call myself the idea strategist. And then I was like, that's not really sustainable. But when I'm working with my clients and I'm consulting them about a variety of things, and if they're struggling and they're trying to figure out how to transition out of working a 9 to 5, or if they're struggling within their own business, that's one of the things I do. I was like, okay, well, let's sit down and talk about your business, what you really want to do. Here's how you can do it. I see the big picture. I look at it as an umbrella. I can see the big picture. So that's the umbrella part. And then I
Mm-hmm.
see all the spokes underneath that can hold that big picture up. And then the handle is the commonality. What's the one thing that ties it all together?
Mm. Interesting. The benefits of your mind thinking in thought bubbles. Thought, thought bubbles and thought clouds all around, raining down ideas into that umbrella. So
But
what
the other,
a what an experience.
but it is. But the other thing I will say too is on the flip side of that, not everybody appreciates it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things where people think you're trying to show off, or they think that you're trying to steal the show. There's times I would be in meetings with people and we're doing collaborations and they'll say something. I'm like, oh, that and da 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 da. And people were like, you were so rude because you were talking over me and da da da. And I'm like, well, first of all, that's how me and my family talk. We just carry on 2011 conversations at one time.
But do all y'all jokers have ADHD? Because let me tell you, y'all like to
And
interrupt people.
no, I wouldn't say that because I have some aunts that'll sit there, they'll wait for you to finish, that are quiet. That's just how we talked. It was never
Mm-hmm.
amongst family, right? And so when I would get comfortable with people, I didn't realize that was part of my being comfortable with you, is that I would start
Mm.
doing that. And so, like, you've been around me and my husband, you've seen where I'll start talking and he'll stop, and then I'll go,
Mm-hmm.
oh. So I've had to learn how to pick up on those cues, like, okay, you're making somebody feel uncomfortable. So a lot of times when I go into collaborations with people or partnerships, if I notice that they're not talking to me the same way, what I will do is I will tell them, this is how I communicate. If it bothers you, please let me know so that I can try to restrain myself or
Mm,
whatever. When I'm around friends where they just sit back and stop talking, I'll go, okay. Part of my trainer side kicks in, which is where you're supposed to have everybody included in the conversation. So that's
mm,
when I'll go, okay, well, so and so, what did you want to say? Or you were about to say something, or I'll just stop talking. I'll be in the middle of a
mm,
sentence and I'll just stop. And somebody will say, what happened? I'll go, oh, I forgot, because I don't want to dominate a conversation. And I realize that
mm,
part of the challenge that I have with my neurodivergence is that it comes across like I am taking over a conversation when I'm really trying not to. You're just sparking
mm,
all these things inside my head, and I'm trying to get them out before I forget. And most of the time, I'm trying to get them out so they can benefit you. And it's more of a you benefit than it is a me.
mm, mm. Interesting. Very interesting. I'm sure we will have many conversations about that in depth.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you're still kind of working through the feelings around it. How would you kind of summarize where you are now with having this diagnosis?
That's a good question. I'm a little more comfortable. I embrace it. I talk about it.
Hmm.
I don't hide it. So when people, find me on LinkedIn, they're going to see me talking about it and hearing it. There's some aspects I'm not ready for people to see. For
Hmm.
instance, I will talk about what my neurodivergent brain is like. I will not show people what my desk looks like.
Mm,
Like for real, like a behind the scenes. I wanted to do like a behind the scenes shoot, and I was like, nope, got to wait till my desk is clean. Because
mhm,
normally this isn't how I would not keep my desk anyway, but it was very indicative of where my brain was at and how it was
mm,
functioning, and it was not a good space. So I'm doing better. I've adjusted to it a little bit better. I'm learning to be more patient with myself and be more understanding with myself and with others. I still feel like I have to do an educational phase with my family. I feel like they
mm.
get it but don't get it.
I understand. I understand that for sure. Hmm. Yeah.
And I also have to work on how I educate others. So, there's a lot going around on like TikTok and Instagram that when you get to your 50s, like you have no cares, you have zeros, you just like whatever, and you're going to tell people what it is.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I've had to really work hard at not doing, because that's really true, is when people go, oh, well, everybody has that, or, that's just
Hmm.
the thing about when you get older, or you girl, you know what menopause is like, and blah, blah, blah.
Hmm. Hmm.
Brain fog is different. Realizing I have ADHD is completely different than when I realized I had brain fog because of my autoimmune illnesses.
Hmm.
My forgetfulness is different. It's like it goes to a whole nother level. So, for those of you that aren't diagnosed as of yet, or you're trying to figure things out, I describe some of the things that we experience with our neurodivergence as being on a whole other level than what we would typically experience. So, yes, it's true that when you go through menopause and you get older, you become forgetful, but you don't get so forgetful that I literally forget to eat in a day.
Hmm.
Today, my husband he came to me before we, started recording, and he's like, babe, don't forget to get you something to eat. Because I would literally go all day, have a glass of water, and I'm full through the day because I forget to eat. And then my body is signaling me and has been signaling me, I'm just not getting it in the receptors. That's a whole nother level of forgetfulness
Hmm.
than just you know, than anything typical.
It's not the
Forgetting,
same as I forgot what I had for lunch. It's like I forgot to eat lunch
yes,
because I'm not paying attention to hunger cues. Like they're not happening. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Hmm.
Your sleep patterns. There were times where I was an insomniac. So it was funny because, you're going to hear us talk about this a lot because it's a passion of ours. But when I was first getting into K-pop, I literally like I was like, oh, I like this song, I like this song and that song. And Lex was like, okay, look, here's a group of people you should listen to. So she would send me a list of, here's different groups to listen to. Here's some songs you should listen to. She gave me a very specific order to listen to them in.
I said, this is the order that I listen to the most because you asked me what I like.
She did. She did. And she laid it out beautifully. I had insomnia. I started with one, went down the rabbit hole, and then in like 2 weeks later, we're all talking. And she was like, how do you even know that group? How did you find that song? They're like second gen. What is da-da-da? And I was like, I went down a rabbit hole one night. Now don't get me wrong, if you get into K-pop, it does happen, but that's a whole nother story. But my point is, I got hyper focused. And because I was hyper focused, I had insomnia. I would not go to bed. I would do the same thing if I was watching a Korean drama. The drama could have been sorry, but I had to finish it. But when it's really good, I'm not going to bed for like 2 days. If that drama is 20 episodes, most of them are shorter than that now. It was like I would literally be up all night long because I was hyper focused. That's what I mean by this is not typical. What so-called typical behavior is. This is above and beyond what other people would experience, or when they try to say, oh, this is just normal. No, insomnia like that that's not normal, where I'm doing that 2-3 days in a row. That's not normal. Sometimes they'll say, oh, yes, it is. The older you get, you don't sleep quite as much. Yes. So you might sleep 3 or 4 hours. I'm not sleeping at all. And I'm getting up the next day and I'm functioning as if I have slept until my body finally crashes out wherever I am. There's a difference. There's a difference. And if you deal with autoimmune issues, sometimes you get that as well. But at some point, the receptors in your brain are going to work. My receptors were not working. My receptors were on, just firing all cylinders. So yeah, I have to work
Education,
on
the
not
way
saying
educating others.
definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's always a lot to process. Explaining to people who you are as a person, and their immediate reaction maybe being to downplay what you just said, not understanding that by even telling them it was a little bit of a vulnerability in that.
Yep.
So, yeah, I understand that from a different aspect, different side of a neurodivergent coin.
Yes.
Being like, oh, you don't look like what that supposed to look like? I don't even know what that means. What does that mean? So, yeah, definitely understand that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But it's also I don't shy away from it. I tell people I'm in therapy. I was like, I have a therapist, I have a psychiatrist, I am taking my medication, and I wouldn't be doing this, or I wouldn't be here if I didn't have that. Because what's keeping me from choking you out right now is the fact that I'm on these meds. No, like for real, it's like, you're already dealing with so much, and then you're getting this diagnosis and you're like processing the diagnosis, and then you're also looking at how your brain functions is impacting all these aspects of your life. And I go, oh, that's why when it comes to that subject, I go from 0 to 10,000. And on the other one, I'm just like, okay, that doesn't bother me at all, when it should be bothering me, or I'm learning not to say should, because when that is something that would typically or usually bother people. And I'm just like, oh, well, yeah, I can watch a true crime documentary and go to bed. I'm good. I am so good. Some people can't, right? It's too much for them. So it's just thinking about how our brains work. And so, yeah, there are some things that will send me to the stratosphere, and there are some things that I'm just like, whatever, that would totally bother somebody else. But I talk about it so that people do get educated. So if they have questions, I can answer questions, so that if something seems off about me that day, then they will know that it's probably something going on either, physically, or there's something going on inside my brain and I'm trying to work through it. There's some days where I'm just completely shut down. I was like, I can't think, don't want to think, not trying to think, and I'm doing good just to be here. So there's that part.
Yeah.
But the more I've talked to people, the more they've started understanding. And I feel like I'm doing my part to remove any stigmas around it. I'm doing my part to so-called normalize what people think is not normal. And I'm doing my part to help people understand it's a spectrum. We're not all the same.
I'm sure this is going to come up later too, because I find it interesting that you say during your part, it sounds like you feel like a level of responsibility in this, in a way that I don't know that everybody feels, including myself.
Understandable. We should get to that. Yeah, that'll be we'll have to add that to our list of topics. I think that'll be interesting to talk about. And maybe that's the nurturer in me. I don't know. Maybe
Could
that's
be.
the activist in me.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is I don't mind being around someone who doesn't know just because they don't know. I don't like being around people who are willfully ignorant when you have the ability to have them. So that's what I mean by that. It's like, okay, so you want to play dumb, then I'm going to play smart. How about that? So that's how my petty is set up. You want to act stupid? I'll take you to school. We're going to educate you. And then on the other hand, you have people that genuinely have questions they want to know and want to understand. And I want to express that. The challenge I have is when I'm trying to educate you and you aren't validating that this is something you don't know or that is new to you, but you've asked about this and you wanted to, or you've learned a little bit and you feel like you can run with it. No, baby, that's not how this works. That's not how this works.
So
anyway,
we've told your story, how you got here, how you are currently working through it, and I'm curious to see where you end up next in each stage as we do more like active discussions about it. Is there anything else that you want listeners to know?
I want everyone to know that there's no one way to be neurodivergent, which we're going to discover as we talk about your story and we have others talk about theirs. There's no one way to do it. There is no wrong way to do it. You have to do what's best for you. And I feel like we also need to know we're not alone. There's a huge community out there, which is one reason why we wanted to start this podcast, was at least to have a place where all of us can come together and sit and listen to real stories, real time, getting real knowledge and experiences. We're literally going through this together and validate those experiences. That this is a safe place and a safe space for that. I don't mind being as raw and honest as I can be, as long as I'm protecting the dignity of others that may be involved in the situation. And, there's times when we're going to have to do some real hard work, and other times it's going to be full of laughter and it's just going to be crazy and chaotic. But we're not alone. And we're going to learn how to do all of this together. And we are going to continue to work towards normalizing what people are calling what is not neurotypical. Yeah, I don't mind being different. I love being different. So
yes, you do. And I love that for you, friend. I love that for you so much.
We all have to do it the way that makes us feel comfortable. So that's the space for it. This is the space for that. We're going to do it the way that makes each of us individually feel comfortable. So I hope that everybody can get something from, us individually, and then as we go through this, because we're in it together. That's all it really comes down to.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I feel like I learned more about you as my friend, even through this conversation. So this was nice. I appreciate it.
Aw, love you, Lex. Thanks for hanging out with us today. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to cover in our podcast, please don't hesitate to let us know. you can send us a message on our fan page at fanlist.com/BGBG Squirrel. That's fanlist.com/BGBG Squirrel.